Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. In our first story, Karen tried to shame woman for no reason at a beach. Her kid probably has a lot of repressed anger and resentment due to Karen, the makings of a serial killer. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Entitled Karen wants bikini-wearing girls to cover up at the beach during a heat wave. Epic ending. This happened the summer prior to the COVID-19 crisis. I live in a small beach town and was at the beach with my brother and our friends. Keeping anonymity, I'll rename the ones mentioned. Kyle equals my brother. Josh equals my brother's friend. Luna equals Josh's girlfriend. While Kyle and Josh were surfing, Luna and I were sunbathing on the beach. It was hot and about 100 degrees, so we were in bikinis. We were talking about the usual stuff when I noticed some teenager who looked like he was 15 or 16 watching us. Luna and I ignored him, but only until he started getting closer and closer to us. Luna is short, but she's incredibly muscular from working out hours every day, so she seems intimidating to a lot of people. Anyway, when the guy was too close for comfort, arm's distance away from Luna and me, I asked if there was something he wanted from us because he'd been watching us for at least 15 minutes. The guy never looked at my face, just my chest. Yeah, I was in a bikini, but I was covered. The guy's mom, our Karen, came over to Luna and me at this point, then asked if we could cover up. Luna looked at Karen with a "really" expression, and Karen had that entitled face. It's only fair, you're distracting my son, and I'm afraid you'll seduce him with your slutwear. Luna and I looked at each other and burst out laughing. I know it was kind of rude, but when would you hear "cover up" at the beach during a heat wave? Kyle and Josh came back to us and Josh asked if everything was okay. Karen pitched a fit that Luna and I were seductive and flashing her son. Only in your dreams, lady. We were not flashing your son. Karen looked like she was going to slap Luna, so Josh stepped between them to keep them apart. Kyle saw a patrolling cop on the boardwalk and waved him down. The police officer had the red hair like my brother and me. He waved to Kyle and me and then came over and asked if everything was all right and if there was a problem. Karen looked smug. These sluts were trying to seduce my baby boy. Arrest them for exposing themselves to a minor. The police officer just looked from Kyle and me back to Karen. What he said next was epic. To me, anyway. Lady, my cousin is not a slut. Your son isn't a baby. And if you had any brains at all, you'd teach your son to respect women and not see them as scantily clad objects during a heat wave. By the way, do you see the ocean? We're at a beach. My cousin can wear anything she likes. Karen's jaw dropped. Then she grabbed her son's arm and pulled him away while Kyle and me, Josh and Luna were just grinning. I didn't just soak up the sun, I basked in the awesomeness of my police officer cousin. And our second story. Got a customer arrested? Not sure if I should have taken it that far. I'm the manager at a small but popular resort/spa out in the middle of nowhere. Over the past several months, I've been having an ongoing Yelp battle with one of the worst customers I've ever had the displeasure of dealing with. Every time she updates her review, she adds more lies and falsehoods, and it's really wearing me down. At this point, I'm doubting whether or not I handled it correctly or not. Maybe some of you could give me some perspective. Anyway, the story goes like this. Several months ago, I'm sitting at home relaxing. I live on the property, and I hear several really loud dogs barking incessantly from the parking lot. I find this strange since we don't allow dogs for exactly this reason, so I call the front desk to ask what's going on, and they say they were unaware and will investigate. 10 minutes later, I can still hear the dog, so I call again. And the person answering the phone says the situation has escalated and I should get over there right away. Unfortunately, by the time I change my clothes, put on some shoes, and walk over, the situation is over and the people had left. When I debriefed the poor guy, we'll call him Tim, working the front desk, he was shaking from adrenaline and told me the following. A man and a woman in their early 30s arrived while he was checking someone in and abruptly approached the front desk, interrupting the check-in of the other guests, and demanded to know which room their friends were in. Instead of waiting patiently on the couch we have in the lobby, they decided to leave and try to find their friends themselves. They may have already had the room number, or they may have knocked on every door until their friends answered. Who knows? As it was a busy weekend night, several more guests arrived to check in before Tim had a chance to try to find them, and it was at that time that I called from my house about the dogs, who of course belonged to the couple. I think at this point I should mention that we tell every person who checks in to use whispers and low tones while they're in the spa, since most people who come here are looking for a quiet retreat and relaxation. So of course, just as Tim was about to go and find the mystery couple, a very angry guest comes up to the front desk, complaining about a bunch of really loud, rowdy, drunk, obnoxious people down at the spa. So Tim puts up the sign saying he'll be back shortly and starts walking down there. He says that as he got closer, he could hear them from almost 50 feet away. Apparently, they'd gotten the code to the locked gate that leads into the spa from their two friends who'd already rented a room and were drinking alcohol from wine glasses while sitting in one of the hot tubs. I should probably mention that our most important rule is that we do not allow glass or alcohol down at the spa, because if it breaks and gets into any of the tubs. Tim said that when he approached them, he asked if they were the ones who brought the dogs in the parking lot, to which they said yes. He then explained that dogs were not allowed on the property or in the parking lots. Also, they'd not paid to use the spa or rented a room, and that we'd received a noise complaint from another guest. Therefore, they had to leave. He then said they got extremely angry and started screaming and cursing at him, and that he could smell heavy alcohol on their breath. While Tim didn't tell me this directly, I heard from other guests that they called him a gay slur several times while they were leaving. Tim is gay. Around this time, I'd called the second time and they said I should come over to help deal with getting these people off the property. Tim eventually got them to leave under threat of us calling the sheriff, and I saw them drive off, still screaming, as I was walking over. Now, this is the part I'm not sure if I handled correctly. When I debriefed Tim and he explained everything that happened, I immediately felt horrible that he had to deal with such a terrible situation, and I was super upset at how they treated him. I remembered reading so many stories about how crappy managers would side with the customer and how awful it felt for the employee. So I called the sheriff and reported several possibly drunk drivers on our road heading back to town. I later saw in the booking log that the man was arrested for DUI, with priors, driving on a suspended license, and was on probation. Later, I heard through the grapevine that the man is set to spend 1.5 years in prison and the woman may lose her job. I'm not sure if any of this is true. However, I feel really bad for them, even though I also feel it was somewhat justified. I mean, if they were intoxicated and could have stopped screaming homophobic slurs at Tim for long enough to ask us to call them a cab, we would have done so. Hell, I would have paid for it with cash from the drawer, which I've done before. In any case, the woman won't stop leaving negative reviews on any website she can post to, and every time her story gets more and more ridiculous. It is what it is, I suppose, but it sure does get tiring responding every time a new one pops up. And our last story. Trespasser demands I replace his car. Okay, so I'm going to preface this post by saying that the entrance to my property is a standard driveway through roughly 20 meters of wooded area before the driveway opens up to about the same size as a standard American 2-lane roadway. My home sits about 500 meters back off the road, and I've sculpted my driveway, as well as pass in front of my home and a lot of my backyard, into a drift track. We have 2 giant no trespassing signs at the road facing side of the woods, as well as a speed limit 15 sign 10 meters beyond the woods, mainly to remind my friends to not be jerks on their way in when the track isn't hot. Everything's above board with the county, my homeowner's insurance, and local PD. Now, with that out of the way, I went into the port today to pick up a much-awaited 1997 Nissan we're building for my mate, as the mate and I are pulling down a drive in the truck, pulling the trailer with the car on it. My mate yells, "What in the hell is that?" and points off to the corner of the paved part of my property where I have a medium-sized shed which I keep landscaping things like a tractor, golf cart, etc. in. I look over to see the nose of a 2016-2017 Mustang stick out of a now-collapsed shed and a guy laying on the pavement next to it. We immediately drove straight over with haste. As we pull up, our entitled parent sits up from his prone position and starts yelling about suing me, calling me an AH and a bunch of other names. I yelled as loud as I could, "Hey!" Then said, "Who the F are you, and what are you doing on my property? Why is your car in my shed?" To which EP responds, "I'm going to sue you as your racetrack isn't safe and you owe me a new car." By the point, my mate's already on the phone with 911 and has hopped back into the truck. I explained to EP that he's trespassing, and in fact, he owes me a shed and probably a few other things, including a tractor. EP starts to limp toward me, screaming that he's going to own my property and I won't have a pot to pee in when he's done with me. I decide to just get back into the truck and wait on police. Roughly 15 minutes later, 2 police cars come screaming down my drive with their lights and sirens on and see EP beating on the window of my truck with his hands. PD immediately handcuff him and then my mate, and I step out of the truck. EP told police that he's been driving past my property all summer and hearing engines and tires squelching from the roadway, and finally decided that he was going to run a few laps today, that he saw the no trespassing signs but didn't think they were there for him. Who else would they be there for, though? EP was arrested on malicious destruction of property. A tow company in town came and impounded his vehicle, and I was finally able to see that the entire shed and everything in it's a total loss. EP did leave in an ambulance, though he should be fine. Now I'm going to get a hefty bill for the half-ruined shed guys. I'd just like to add that particular shed sits 25 feet off the paved surface. I really hope next year doesn't have as many stressful events as this one. I'm starting by adding a gate with a code to enter the property this week. So a jerk who you don't know decides he's going to get on a property that has a no trespassing sign on it, and when he wrecks because he can't actually drive, sues you? You're covered, bro. Enjoy your payday. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.